Hello everyone! So it's been a while since I've done a review video. I apologize. Tomb Raider has taken much longer to finish than I expected. Regardless, I decided to put out more content and do a quick rematch video with a few Kirby titles. Kirby's Dream Land and Kirby's Adventure. Now I started reviewing Kirby games on my third season, and when I did separate reviews of both of these games. But I'm opting to combine them here. Regardless, I'm pretty excited to be hitting these games again for various reasons. But I think I'm going to start with Dreamland first. Kirby's Dream Land. Okay, let's make this quick. This is a short game. Kirby's development history is a tricky one. One, he's named after a lawyer. Isn't that something? Yeah, he's named after Jack Kirby, the man who defended Nintendo from Warner Brothers about Donkey Kong looking a lot like King Kong. Second, the creator, Sakurai, yes, the same guy who made Smash Brothers, created Kirby as a placeholder, but inevitably loved the design so much he just kept it in. Sakurai wanted Kirby to be pink in an effort to stand out. Miyamoto, the guy who invented Mario, wanted Kirby to be yellow, like Pac-Man. Pink won out in the end, but yellow is often a common second color for Kirby. Oddly, the debate lasted long enough for Kirby to be colored white on the North American box art. Either way, Kirby's Dream Land is a simple and short experience, so let's get right into it. Let's do this. Let's take on King Dedede. Time for a rematch. And that's about the story to Kirby's Dream Land. It's a simple story, but unique. King Dedede is a jerk and stole all of Dreamland's food. No one messes with Kirby's food. Kirby goes on a rampage and destroys all of King Dedede's forces, finds the King of the Penguins, and wrecks his day up. Kirby steals his entire castle, returning all the food and saving the day. It is a cute little story, which works really well with the demographic. The story is short, simple, but unique and stands out well enough, getting people to the point of what Kirby is all about. See, this game was made for younger gamers in mind. Keeping the story simple is great. Keeping Kirby's design simple so kids can draw him easier is amazing. Honestly, for a Game Boy game, this game has amazing animation. Kirby has so much damn personality, and King Dedede isn't far behind. Every boss fight is animated incredibly well too. Also, Kracko and Wispy are just a cloud in a tree, designed so well that they're classic villains now. Great. King Dedede is a fat and greedy penguin. It is an amazing villain, and honestly, Dedede will later become the most adorable little anti-hero the series has ever seen. The music is a classic Game Boy soundtrack as well. Green Greens is just one of those tunes most people who have played Kirby knows. The boss music is pretty decent here too, high-paced for action-packed brawl, while Bubbly Clouds is overly relaxing for one of the tougher levels in the game. Castle Lololo is a favorite of mine. I love this tune, while Float Islands is an impressive piece on the Game Boy as well. Mount Dedede also is a great tune, one that would be incorporated in King Dedede's music moving forward. All pretty good tunes. Could be the second best soundtrack for the Game Boy outside of Super Mario Land if I'm going to be real with you guys. At least for me, and so far, because I haven't played a lot of Game Boy games. But the ones that I have played, this is easily one of the best soundtracks. Alright, moving on to the gameplay. This is also incredibly simple. Kirby can jump, inhale enemies, and either shoot them out like a high-powered projectile, or swallow them. Swallowing doesn't do much, but shooting enemies and objects out of your mouth, apparently, is a fantastic projectile attack to Kirby's enemies. Huh? What do you mean, copy abilities? No, Kirby can't copy abilities around here. He can float through the air, though, which, I'm not gonna lie, the game won't let you float over everything, so beware of being too reliant on that. He can gain power-ups, which allows him to shoot fire, but outside of that, that's it. All this game needs, though, because it's still fun regardless. So, moving on to the level design, there are 5 major levels. The first is pretty simple level that you could fly over, with a boss fight with a big-ass tree. It's a pretty simple level, all things considered. The second level is Castle Lololo, which has tighter areas so you can't just fly over everything. The boss fights are characters from another HAL Labs game here too. The third level is Float Islands, which has some water elements which Kirby can spray water as an attack while underwater. The boss fight is a blimp. Actually, one of the tougher boss fights in the game, come to think of it. This is similar to the final fight from Super Mario Land. It's a fixed shooter, changing genres out of nowhere. Anyway, the second to last level is a bunch of clouds, forcing you to fly as enemies attack you from above, meaning you'll have to be pretty decent at flying to avoid damage. The boss is a storm cloud with one big eye, but it's a tough fight with, ducking mechanics and a decent amount of skill needed to avoid damage. The last level is just a boss rush with a little bit of new level. However, the boss fight, King Dedede, can be a bit of a challenge too. The main game does progressively get more difficult, but I wouldn't say the game is long or challenging as a whole. Still, it teaches young players mechanics and, lets them build skills, which is great. And trust me when I say they're going to need these skills if they're going to survive hard mode. I haven't done much with this or even recorded it, but I hear this is one of the more challenging ones in the Kirby series. Enemies are faster and more aggressive, with Kirby having way less health. Ouch. Outside of that, you can get power-ups and lives for exploration. There are a few secrets hidden around for sure. My favorite is hidden in the moon on one of the levels. Nothing too special, but a nice tough challenge for more skilled players. Overall, Kirby's Dream Land is a 10 out of 10 game. Not because it's perfect, but because it accomplishes everything that it sets out to do and does it very well. The biggest issue of the game is that there isn't enough game to play. It's a testament to how fun the game actually is. The game is built for beginners in mind, and for the short, portable, being able to beat it in roughly a bus ride kind of experience. While there aren't too many secrets, there are some here and there, and the game is super charming and fun to play overall. A masterpiece. A true 10 out of 10 game. Alright, now let's talk about Kirby's Adventure. While I don't know much about Kirby's Adventure development-wise, I do know Sakurai had a different design mindset heading into it. First, this is a console game, and needed to be much bigger, and second, Kirby needed to stand out a little bit more this time. What was that thing that allowed him to stand out? Copy abilities. As for my personal history, this is the game that got me into Kirby to begin with. The only thing I couldn't do is finish off Nightmare. Who's Nightmare? Why, he's the true final threat to the adventure, of course. Yep, so let's get this show on the road, and let's take on Nightmare! Time for a rematch! So, the plot begins, and Kirby learns that there are no more dreams in Dreamland. That sucks. Kirby takes off to the place of all dreams, the Fountain of Dreams. Let me just say dreams 5 more times. There he finds King Dedede bathing in the fountain. What an asshole. Dedede says something about doing people a favor, but Kirby doesn't listen. Kirby takes off as King Dedede took the Star Rod off the fountain and tore it into pieces and gave said pieces to his friends, aka his minions. Kirby takes off and beats the stuffing out of all of these friends, some returning from the previous game like Kracko and Wispy Woods. Most are brand new characters though, including Meta Knight, who sometimes attacks Kirby and sometimes helps him out. He's a rival character. You know, the classic anime rival character, the one who could be evil but also ends up being good, or anti-heroes oftentimes. Yeah, that's Meta Knight. He tests Kirby's might and spirit out, but he agrees with what Kirby is doing at the same time, so he sometimes assists him. He's also a boss fight. What a jerk. Anyway, Kirby eventually heads back to the Dream Fountain, now with a ton of troops guarding it, and faces King Dedede once more. However, Dedede was actually trying to help people this time around, becoming an anti-hero, something I mentioned earlier in Dreamland. And he was actually protecting everyone from the real threat, a monster by the name of Nightmare. Kirby is sucked into Dedede's mouth, an ability he now has, and shot at Nightmare with the Star Rod, which Kirby uses to break Nightmare's orb shell thing. Afterwards, Kirby fights Nightmare on the moon, blowing off a chunk of it, which is, considering the Sun and Moon are a boss fight from earlier in this game, I guess it kind of serves them right. Kirby learns that Dedede, while a jerk, isn't all bad, and the Star Rod is returned, giving people dreams once more. Yay! Dreamland now has dreams again. A simple story, but again, very effective for a younger audience. Heck, even slightly older audience may enjoy some of these twists, because there's actually twists in this game, ain't that something? You know, this game came out really late in the NES lifespan. Like, the SNES was already out for a couple years late in the NES lifespan. So naturally the game looks great. The animations are fluid and the sprite quality and design are top-notch. The colors are usually somber but still look fantastic, and the new bosses are really good. Meta Knight is a dark Kirby in a mask, which is just really cool looking. Dedede looks great, the mold driller type boss is fun looking, and Paint Roller is kind of forgettable. Not a bad design, just not great. Oh, but Mr. Bright and Mr. Shine are really fun. They're the sun and moon who attack together. Such a cute design. The mid-bosses are good too. This game introduces them and there are a ton of them. Bonkers is an iconic Kirby goon with a hammer and coconuts. Fire Lion is actually intimidating. Mr. Frosty is adorable and dangerous, but some of these aren't too memorable, like Rolling Turtle and Bugsy. Still, a lot of fantastic designs overall. None of them are bad, and the music is bubbly and fun as well. Grape Garden Overworld being a personal favorite of mine. Vegetable Garden has great music for the start of the game and the levels proper. And Orange Ocean's levels has some great music too. Green Greens even reappears here, which is why I'm so familiar with it. Remember, I've never played Dreamland growing up. I played this a lot though. The final boss music, particularly Nightmare's True Form, is pretty good too. Though I lack the nostalgia for it since I only beat Nightmare in my later years. Regardless, this game is charming as ever, with a clean look and a fantastic soundtrack for what the game is setting out to do. So when talking about the gameplay, it mostly returns from Kirby's Dream Land. No big deal, but this is the game that adds copy abilities into the mix. Shockingly, there are 25 copy abilities, but you could guess they're incredibly simple and overall some of the most identical abilities ever. Freeze and Spark are nearly the same thing. They put an area of effect around Kirby, and the difference being Freeze turns enemies into projectiles, while Spark doesn't. Needle is also a bit similar to this. Meanwhile, Fire and Ice shoot out in front of Kirby, either destroying or again turning them into a projectile of ice. Crash and Might function as screen nukes. Backdrop and Throw both turn enemies into projectiles in slightly different ways, and Light is just there to light up specific rooms. Sword, Parasol, and Hammer are all very similar as well, but slightly different as well. Now things get really unique as Cutter is a great projectile, Laser is a projectile ability, but it's very different in how it works and reflects off of slopes. UFO combines Laser and Beam as well as granting Kirby levitation, better than his hover ability. Beam is a slightly better version of Ice and Fire as it moves around Kirby for more coverage. And yes, Beam and Laser are two different abilities. Trust me, I already made that mistake. Tornado makes you a flying mess. Just take off and destroying foes like a top. You know, it could have just been called Top too. Just saying. High Jump, Wheel, Fireball, and Ball all change how Kirby move around and attack. And Sleep is just the joke ability. Technically, so is Ball. While lastly, Star Rod is the final ability that you use on the final boss. There's nothing wrong with these abilities, but later down the line, the games will start combining these and trimming down the fat, so to speak. The biggest issue is how easily you can lose these, though. Ugh. One hit and the ability just leaves you. You can get it back in some instances, but damn, this is annoying. What you have to do is inhale the ability back into Kirby, and that's basically how all of this works too. Remember in Dreamland when I said swallowing was basically just removing an enemy? Well, now if you swallow something with an ability, you get that ability. And if you lose the ability, the star it creates can be eaten back up. But one hit? This is rough if you like a particular ability. And while it isn't too difficult to find another ability nearby, what about the ones you like? I love Sword Kirby. And boy, this game does love having enemies come off you from off screen. Not only that, but the enemies respawn pretty quickly too. If you move away from their location ever so slightly, they will be back where they're at. This makes holding on to powers you get really difficult for such a simple and easy game. This can be found to be very frustrating. Outside of this issue, the levels are all pretty fun though. There are different things in each level as well. Some are boats, some clouds, you got some towers. Oh, the tower levels are fun. Having you climb up a tower with a neat little rounded effect, and honestly the throwback level where Green Greens plays is a fantastic recap. Yep, there's a nostalgic level in Kirby's second game, recapping his first game, which is actually kind of funny. Either way, there are some fun levels. The boss fights are pretty good too. Wispy and Kracko are roughly the same. Dedede now inhales, much like Kirby. That's cool. The Sun and the Moon fight are fantastic though, and Meta Knight forces you to be Sword Kirby to fight Meta Knight, which is cool. That marks the only point in the game where you have to use a copy ability, by the way. Every other area can be taken out with regular Kirby, except for Meta Knight and the final boss. However, sometimes you need specific powers and abilities to traverse into secret territories. Sometimes these just hold lives, while other times they have switches. The switches will open areas into the overworld, which will often allow you to play some type of minigame or a mid-boss fight. The minigames are simple. One is a claw machine-like game, one has Kirby eating eggs and avoiding bombs, and one has you doing a Western-style quick-draw game. There are ways to farm lives, basically, while you can also find places for free power-ups and abilities. And some have arena fights. Arena fights pits you against one of the mid-bosses for a max tomato, the best healing item in the game. You also get the boss ability, which can be very rare, like, Hammerer. You can also beat the game 100%, you get a harder version of the game, just like the original game, which can be seen as pretty fun. So, overall, yeah, the game is fun. The plot works, the charm is through the roof again, and the gameplay is pretty good. The only real issue is losing your copy ability so easily. This mechanic is easily the worst part of the game. It makes things really annoying when you're trying to just beat a level or trying to get some specific secret that you need a specific power-up for. Oh yeah, that one's fun. Outside of this issue, the game is incredibly spot on and holds up pretty well, making a solid 9 out of 10, which is amazing. A great NES game. Alright, last but not least, Nightmare in Dreamland. Okay, let's go over some points of the remake, Nightmare in Dreamland. This remake is made to coincide with the anime, Kirby Right Back At Ya. Overall, it's basically the same game with a few differences, but real quick, let me talk about the anime real fast. Kirby Right Back At Ya is fantastic. If you want a cute, somewhat shonen, anime, Kirby Right Back At Ya is actually really, really good if you can go find it. Just wanted to kind of point that out because that's not scripted. I didn't talk about the anime very much. I just kind of briefly mentioned it, and I felt that was kind of wrong of me to do. So, yeah, Kirby Right Back At Ya. I do recommend it as an anime. 8 out of 10, I guess. Arbitrary numbers aside. First things first, differences in this game versus the original adventure. The minigames are very different. You can now rail surf, quick draw, but with a sword, and hot potato with bombs. The graphics and music are upgraded. Yeah, other than, the tower that I mentioned that spins in the original adventure doesn't spin here. That's kind of stupid. But the graphics look more like the anime, and while I didn't record it this time, you can also play as Meta Knight in this game. Yeah, if you beat the game 100%, then beat it again, but harder 100%, you get to play as Meta Knight. I was crunched for time though, so I didn't get to do it. You also can't see Meta Knight giving you the power-ups in this particular game due to screen crunch and the game speed, so if you don't play the original, as far as you're concerned, he's just some asshole that shows up every so often. The HUD is smaller, so you only see copy ability pictures briefly, but Kirby also has hats now, which better represents the abilities. This is better than the original game for sure. The only thing better than this is a remake for the 3DS. Sorry, I had to say it like that because the way I wrote it was kind of wordy. Yeah, basically, Akira remade Kirby's Adventure, but for the 3DS. And it is Kirby's Adventure. It's a one-for-one remake, unlike this, but it just runs better overall from what I'm hearing. So, yeah, I don't have that version of the game, unfortunately. It's pretty much lost to the ether now. But, yeah, if you can find it, I'd spring for it just a little bit. Overall, very fun, but the issues of having only one hit and losing your ability is still an issue, and for whatever reason carries over to the Amazing Mirror, where there it's even worse. Ugh. Still a 9 out of 10 game. Okay, that wraps everything up. I played 3 Kirby games for this rematch, and I appreciate you all sticking with me on this. I recommend all of these games. Yeah, Dreamland's short, Adventure has issues, but overall these games are still really fun. Not super challenging, unless you play the harder modes, but fun nonetheless. The harder modes do make it quite a bit more interesting for sure. If you liked the video, please leave a like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell, do all the other things that help me out a lot. I really do appreciate it, guys, and I, again, apologize for not getting an upload earlier. This is coming out in May, and, yeah, Tomb Raider took way too long. I'm sorry, like, holy crud. I did not realize how long that game was going to take. It doesn't help the fact that it took me forever to get the AC in the room, and everything's been trying to overheat. The cat's been a pain, blah. Regardless, I should be back up to normal speed relatively soon, so work also has a lot to do with that. If you really want more details, go check out my update that I posted last week, and I'll catch you guys next time. Take care, my minions. I'm also a little sick, so I can't really do my full laugh. Anyway, bye-bye.